This is tough. This is extremely tough for me right now. Just because I don't know what to expect. I've never really done this on this big of a level before. Now, I do have this 4-page type script thing I want to use. And I will try to use as much as possible. But if something comes up, I just don't know what to say. This took me like a week and a half to 2 weeks to write. And the only reason I'm having... I guess there's two reasons I'm having this much trouble. One is it deals with a certain label that it's not that I'm embarrassed about, but I just don't like being associated with certain labels. Also, although there has been some positive news recently about this, there's still a lot of negative stuff surrounding this. So, I just... man. Also, there more than likely will be more than one video about this topic going into detail about what I have to say here. So just don't be surprised. Continue to ask questions if you don't want to, or I might answer your questions in the video, but keep asking if you don't see the answer to your question in my video. Now, I am actually making this video to explain who I am. I have made a video or videos before on my second channel explaining who I was. But for anyone that makes a YouTube video, there are certain time limits to the videos that they make, whether it's by their own choice or by some sort of limit that YouTube imposes. I chose a time limit for all my previous videos only because I did not want to explain everything and go into detail about what I did give out. Now, having said that, I also do not know why I don't know what label to put on this, because I generally don't like to take labels or accept labels. There are certain things that are easy for me to put a label on. Now, I make YouTube videos, therefore the correct label would be YouTuber. I was born July 14th, 1988. Therefore, according to the Western Zodiac, I am a Cancer. According to the Chinese Zodiac, I'm an Earth Dragon. Which, again, I'm just going over labels here. But there are too many labels out there, and not enough descriptive words to say, hey, this is one descriptive word out of many. I don't feel like I want a label defining who I am. I should be able to define what the label is, and I should be able to describe what that label means to me. Now, there are so many labels out there that explain, who a person is, what a person does, all that stuff. And those of you that know me well enough hopefully know that I am not saying this because I'm trying to stick to one specific label, nor am I attempting to change other people's opinions. The main reasons I haven't stated this to other people other than my closest friends for the longest time is because, I was afraid of the scrutiny of other people's opinions on this, as well as the fact that many of the people I've spoken with about other topics tend to think that I'm trying to change who they are, regardless of whether I am or not, which almost never is the case. The reason that I wanted to say all of that is because I generally try not to label who I am as any sort of I don't try to label who I am as any sort of specific thing. I strongly dislike giving myself labels because I feel as if labels tend to define who a person is. I also feel as if, a person should be able to define the label, as I said before, not have the label define them. Therefore, when I give out this label to describe who I am, I would like to say that I want to define the label as well in this video or series of videos, depending on how long I film. But I would like to define the label according to, what I know. Also, I put the fact that I want to avoid people asking what a certain label means, but if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask, regardless of whether I go over it or not, because I could always go over it in more detail. Now, one last thing before I get into what I want to say. I would like to say that I have noticed how a lot of people are making similar videos on YouTube about, this, their similar topics. And by now, you know what I'm going to say if you would have read the title of the video. And I've tried watching their videos. There's just so many out there, I couldn't have seen them all. But I did that to see how they explain, how they went through telling people, how they decided to say this in the YouTube videos, and many other things. I've tried to put a lot of thought into this, including how I'm going to say it, and figure that saying this straight out would be my best bet. Then go into a few details after that. Now to get into the meat of it. I am pansexual. My experiences telling other people this about myself has been an overall positive set of events, mostly surrounded by a little bit of confusion either on my part or on their part at the time. The only reason, the main reason why this has been surrounded by confusion is partially because, many people either have differing descriptions of certain words, or because some of the people I've told haven't heard this term, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to describe it, whether or not, my description of it is good enough. The only reason there is confusion surrounding this term of pansexual is because there are so many descriptions of so many different words, and so many people don't know how to describe everything. Now, I have heard slightly different descriptions on what people think it is from person to person. and what they think pansexual means. Most of the people I've spoken with think it means bisexual, but the way I explain it to people is that it's similar, but just a more general list of who I fall in love with. What I mean by that is, by definition, bisexual means loving only the two genders, male, female. Pansexual refers to loving everyone regardless of who it is. At least that's what the prefixes mean. Regardless of whether, a person's friend, family, acquaintance, somebody that I just know off the street, whatever, I would say that, people today, for the most part, have been accepting of who I am. When I describe this to people, the most common thing I get asked is, how? Like, how do you know you are this way? How do you know who you love? That's the most common thing I get. What I respond is, that is just who I am. And if they don't understand what I mean, I always ask, how do you know who you love? You just know. I'm the same way. That's just who I am. Now, I realize that the act of people coming out to the people that they know is a more common thing, at least publicly, is more common. Especially with the whole marriage proposal being passed, allowing gay marriage across the U.S. For me, I've always known that I've had, more accepting love of people, I can give love to anyone, regardless of what gender they are. For me, I've always just known that I've been more accepting of this. The first time I felt, deep, I guess I would call it infatuation. Was, I've felt, different infatuations towards people throughout school. Now, first one was in, kindergarten. Then I've had, the only reason I say infatuation, though, is just because I think, true love that young is extremely rare. And I wound up growing out of it. Almost, within a couple months, I had grown out of it. But my first infatuations that I've had with people, first one was female, then I had kind of gotten infatuated with, I'm not going to say who, out of privacy, but I am going to say it was either a group of triplets or quadruplets, and then one other person that was in the same class as them. So 4 or 5 boys at that time, since we were in elementary school. And then after that, uh, you know, one female, one male in like fourth and fifth grade. Those didn't last for more than, a couple months each. None of those infatuations lasted for more than a couple months each. Now, throughout the rest of school, that was all leading up to fourth grade. Now, throughout the rest of school, I have had several different infatuations. People who I thought I'd fallen in love with, people who I was attracted to, ranging from males to females to even somebody where I'd overheard them in the lunchroom talking about them wanting to get a sex change. Teachers, all this stuff. But through all that, I thought that there were people, like most of the people out there, would not accept me for who I was. I told nobody throughout school anything about myself. Quite frankly, because not only did I not have friends, I just didn't really know who to trust. I knew I was different than what people considered to be the norm, and I just didn't fit in. I didn't know who I could tell, and I realized your opinion on this is your opinion, and your opinion may change over time. I'm not here to try and change people's minds. I am simply stating who I am. This is simply a video of me explaining who I am. I love who I love. I'm attracted to certain people. And you, nor anyone else, will be able to change who I am or who I love. Having said that, at this point, at the time I'm recording this video, I haven't told anyone in my immediate family. Just because I don't want to have to deal with a certain line of questioning. Like, after observing how people in my family act, there's a certain line of questioning I know will come up. I just don't want to have to deal with that line of questioning. For the most part, the people I have told this to outside of my family have given positive response to the small bit of information about myself. Now, when I have told people, again, they've asked me how I've known. I know I just covered this not too long ago. I just know it's who I am. Just a second here, I'm going to turn on the AC. But yeah, it's just who I am. I know because it's who I'm attracted to. And I know the same way that they know that who they are attracted to. If you're attracted to someone, you just know. With who I am, what I'm looking for, there are certain physical features that I'm looking for, certain things that I'm looking for, in a person. But genitalia is not one of them. I essentially hid from everybody. I hid who I was from everybody until recently because I was afraid of several things. First, I was scared of what that meant about me because I didn't know. Second, I was scared of what other people would think about me. Now, when I say that I was scared about what that meant for me, the only reason I was scared is because I didn't understand any of it. I have a little bit more understanding now, but I'm still learning. I don't know everything about myself. As soon as I know more, I could have a different definition of who I am. That is why I was unsure of how to say, who I am. I just thought that for a long time I thought that I might have been wrong about something, and that although I was attracted to people regardless of their gender, I've never met anyone who told me that they were like me, and I thought that what I felt was not normal. Also, because I hadn't met many people prior to a certain point who told me anything about themselves, I was afraid of what other people would think. I cared too much for other people's opinions, and now I realize that I was hiding, suppressing who I was. I was trying to change who I was because of other people, all out of fear. And I realize that isn't the right thing to do. That caused anger, that caused depression. I'll get into that in a future video. But up until that point, though, up until the point where I actually did come out, I had done absolutely no research. I finally decided to come out as bi. And I was almost expecting the stereotypical religious person who doesn't like, or like the stereotypical religious person who considers it a sin, to be right around the corner to try and belittle me. I almost expected to be attacked. The more I told people, the more I realized that certain people out there are willing to accept me for who I am. I have had a few people I was unsure of their intent. I've had a few of those people ask me about that, like about who I was and who I was attracted to. I always tried brushing it off because I just didn't want to deal with the criticism. But most of the few people I told said that they were able to tell or that they would accept me for who I was. Now, the people that said that they knew told me that they could tell based off of how I acted, based off of what I said, and nobody I trusted with this information wound up treating me any differently. Now, I do want to say that the people that said they knew told me they knew based off of how I acted and what I said and did, all that stuff. There's no way to stereotype being gay. Granted, yes, there are stereotypical hey factors that are like, there are stereotypical actions, let's just say that. But I've seen straight people who use the whole, like, how do I say this? There's a stereotypical gay, quote-unquote gay stereotype, And some of the people I've seen who act that way were straight. You just don't know. But nobody that I guess all the people that I told this to wound up not treating me any differently. The most common response that I got from people is that they didn't understand how I knew who I was attracted to, or didn't understand the term, or whatever. Beyond that, no difference. Now, I know I've mentioned this a couple times. I'm not trying to change other people's opinions. I'm just explaining who I am, especially now that, you know, so many other people are telling their coming out stories. This is just a part of me and a part of who I am. Now, as I've said before, I have become infatuated with other people. And it was infatuations with people who identified both as girls and guys. And there were a few who were transitioning, or, you know, whatever. Didn't identify as didn't identify as male or female. Didn't identify within the normal spectrum of the, like, whatever the binary thing is, male, female. There have been a few people who, you know, just didn't identify with anything that I've been attracted to. And as of now, there are only a few people I have told. But if I tell somebody now, I only tell certain people who I'm attracted to in a way to see who I can trust. Because I want to be able to trust certain people, and I want to be able to trust the people who accept me for who I am. And if somebody won't accept me, then I don't need them in my life. I just feel like I should have come to that conclusion sooner. But I was worried. I didn't tell people because I was worried about the people who I don't need in my life, the negativity surrounding those people. And I know, because of who I was, I know I've said this before, I've felt differently my whole life. I didn't think who I was would be, you know, considered normal. Up until recently, I thought normal was, you know, a certain way, and then I realized there was no normal. There's nothing normal. But because I wasn't telling people, I started feeling depressed. I locked myself up in my room to hide. Things just spiraled out of control for me physically and emotionally. My depression, I got depressed. I went from 135 pounds at the end of my senior year, pretty much all muscle, in 2006, up to 245 a couple years later. And I kind of plateaued at 245 up until about February or so of 2015. I didn't feel as if I could tell people who I really was, because I didn't feel like I could really tell myself who I was. I was waiting for someone to accept me for who I thought I was, who I thought I should have been, even though I knew that wasn't true. I hid who I was. I wanted to have other people accept me for this lie. And at that point, I still did not accept who I was. And that part of me was something I hid and denied my entire life up until fairly recently. because I thought that hiding who I was better than, coming to terms with who I actually am. Finally, I think it was 2014, 2013, like late 2013. I finally told a couple of people who I felt like I could trust. And every time I told somebody about this part of myself, I initially felt scared. I thought I'd be, kind of cast out. When I saw that the people I told started accepting me for who I was after I told them this information, what I thought was like clinical depression was actually disappeared more the more I said this part of myself to the more I explained who I was to other people, the more this actually disappeared. I do think that I stopped caring as much about what other people thought because I saw that people were accepting. I started treating myself better. I started losing weight. I started eating healthier. I started exercising. And I did actually become more self-confident every time I told somebody about who I was and what that part of me actually meant, in my opinion. I had amazing stuff happen to me because of how much, how much I actually decided I wanted to change. When I wasn't telling people all this amazingly negative crap was brought my way. I was even hiding who I was from myself because I did not understand who I was or what that meant if I told myself and believed it. I apparently have even been dropping hints, according to other people. I've been dropping hints as well as to people before I told them, which I didn't even realize was happening. I did not realize that I did actually drop hints to people. I guess that the biggest thing that I want to say with this video is that if you cannot accept who you are, you cannot expect other people to accept you for who you are. This is me saying that I now accept who I am. I now love who I am. At this point, I can't imagine acting any differently than I do now. And I can't imagine being anyone other than who I am. At least on this level, anyway. This is part of who I am, but only part. I actually lived my life a certain way, and I almost died because I was scared. As I said before, I was scared of who I was growing up and what other people thought about me. I was made fun of my entire life because I was different. Growing up, people were rude to me in elementary and middle school. Started rumors about me. All this shit got into my head, and I let their actions control who I was growing up. I hid who I was angry at everybody about everything. I buried who I was beneath lies and anger. Once I accepted who I was, I told a few people, and now I feel better than I had my entire life. I have always believed that I was born a certain way. But I do not believe that things can. But I do believe that things can change over time. As of now, I've always been this way. I've always loved equally, regardless of who it is. I've always been attracted to certain people. And gender lines just blur for me. I don't care how you identify. If you're attractive, like if you're a certain way, I will be attracted. I feel as of right now, I feel this is normal and this is healthy for me. Personally, I don't see how people can be so judgmental towards loving a certain person, because I feel as if, people should be able to love whoever they want. And I feel like this is just who I am. It's who I'm attracted to. Now, I understand that there are many people out there who want to limit marriage. I believe that love is love, and marriage should be, accepted. Love is love, regardless of who it is, and marriage should be, in my opinion, should be between two consenting adults, regardless of whether it is the conventional male-female or if it's between two other adults who don't fit into that stereotype of what a marriage should be. I explained who I was to acquaintances, and the biggest fear for me was not being accepted by the people I told. This was the most difficult thing I have had to tell people. Now, for the most part, as I said before, I had, I had told people, and I was accepted by those people that I told. I've been told by certain people who's, basically, some of the people, I joke a certain way, and some of the people say that I went a little too far with the jokes because they felt like I was trying to hit on them, which may have been true at the time, but they never thought I was going too far before they knew. At this point, I'm assuming that they said that my joking was going too far because I came out as pansexual to them. I've essentially had to deal with, similar experiences my entire life where people have said that I go too far. Now, that is exactly why I try not to stick to certain labels. It took me a while before I actually made this video. It took me a while to associate myself with the label of pansexuality. As I said before, all this means for me is that I love people regardless of how they identify. As I've said before, all that means is I love people for who they are and not how they identify. The only reason I wanted to make this video, there's two reasons. One is I've seen plenty of videos online about people coming out, and two is that I've used Ashley Mardell to start learning about different terms. like pansexuality and a few of the other terms that are out there. Because I didn't know anything before, and because I still don't know everything, I actually felt uncertain for so long that I did not want to stick that label of pansexual on myself. I still do not know, much about all these terms. And I just didn't want to I did not want to associate myself with something that I did not understand fully. Having said that, I understand that I mentioned Ashley Mardell. Ashley has actually claimed in at least one of her videos on her YouTube channel that she does not know everything about sexuality, attractions, all that stuff. She even made a video called I Messed Up where she says she continually is learning stuff about what she said in a previous video. Not only did I use Ashley as a springboard for learning this info, I don't know as much as I could. I don't know, I just don't know as much as I could, and I'm learning more. All I know is, what people I'm attracted to, and, this is, I know I've made a video that's, half hour, 45 minutes long. I still feel like I only scratched the surface on who I'm attracted to, because I don't know everything about this topic. So, I want what do I want? Well, acceptance is something that I do want and that I am going to fight for. But if it does not happen immediately, I'm not going to get depressed about it. Because I understand that I can only offer information. I can't physically force people to change their mind. So, if anyone has any questions for me, ask me either on this video or on Twitter, or you can even, make a video, an actual video of your question if you have a lot to ask. Just make sure that when you leave your comment on this video or on Twitter or upload your video, make sure that you use the hashtag VlogMNQNA. I will gladly go into more detail about this situation with the right questions.